Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of A Pod About a Pod, a podcast about podcasts featuring commentary, critique, and sneak peeks of a different show every episode. I'm your host, Jordan Pierce, and I'm very excited to get started talking about my favorite podcasts and why I think they're worth your time. I remember back a few years ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I didn't understand what people were talking about when they would talk about podcasts. And it was a former boss of mine and a friend named Hannah who introduced me to my first podcast. So before I really get started here, there's a couple shout outs I wanted to make. And the first one's to you, Hannah. If you're listening, hello. Thank you so much for introducing me to this world. I obviously love it so much that I decided to join it and make a podcast about podcasts. So meta. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to you in case you're listening. Thank you for all of this joy that you've brought into my life indirectly. I honestly don't really have the words to describe my gratitude because I don't really have the words to say what podcasts mean to me. I'm going to try a little bit throughout the course of this episode and others to explain it. But long story short, they make me really happy. And I didn't even know what they were or that they existed before you told me about it. So first shout out to Hannah. Second shout out, this show, A Pod About a Pod, would not be possible if not for my sister, Cameron. It's technically her idea, so let me go ahead and say that here. First 90 seconds of episode 1, Cameron, this was your idea. So thank you to her for making this possible by coming up with it in the first place. I love my sister very much, and you all will probably get to meet her at some point or another. I'll have her on as a guest host, but a little on that later. One last shout out before we officially get started on the podcast of the day. Last shout out goes to Amber, who was a lady I dated in the recent past, and I don't know if she will ever hear this, but technically she was one who introduced me to the podcast I'm talking about this episode, so it seemed fitting that she should get a shout out too. So Amber, thank you for showing me Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet, which is the subject of our first episode. It's a wonderful podcast. It brings me a lot of joy, and I would probably never have found it if not for you showing it to me. So thank you. Hannah, Cameron, Amber, all worked to help bring this episode to you and make it possible. As I said, I'm Jordan Pierce, your host. We're on a bi-weekly quest to share the best of podcasts. And when I say bi-weekly, I mean every other week, not twice a week. I'm a little too busy to promise an upload schedule like that at this moment in time. So once every 2 weeks, I'm going to try my best to stick to that. So that's where we're starting out. Episodes drop every other Sunday. Today, I'm going to be talking about a show called Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. Throughout this episode and every episode, I'm going to intersperse some sneak peeks throughout to kind of give you a taste, a little teaser, a little preview of what the podcast I'm featuring has to offer. And that might normally come a little bit later in the episodes, but for today, to celebrate, let's say for our first episode, I'm going to give you the sneak peek a little early. And that's because one of my favorite things about Beach Too Sandy is their intro. It's funny, it's bumping, the music makes me dance, and I could not imagine making this episode without showcasing it. I mean, it's one of the things I love about the show. So before we even jump in to why you should listen, just listen for yourself.
Welcome to Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet, a podcast featuring real reviews written by people who just need the world to know what they think. Between you and me, I wanted to like this podcast, but I'd give it 0 stars if I
could. In my 800 plus hours of listening to podcasts, that intro might be my top favorite of all time thus far. Not only is it catchy as hell, it tells you exactly what to expect, which is the name of our next segment. Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet is a conversational comedy podcast with just a splash of social commentary. A lot of the funny comes from the Yelp reviews, although the sibling banter between the co-hosts definitely crack me up as well. The social commentary usually arises with a sympathetic perspective to the small business owners, employees, retail workers, and there's also speculation oftentimes about the motivations of the people leaving these reviews. What's the larger story? Did they just have a bad day? Do they have a vendetta against this company? So sometimes they research into that, read other reviews by that same person to see if they can find out more, or other times they just make up stuff off the top of their head, which is is pretty funny. Each episode has a theme, which follows a formula of pairing a type of business with a location. So, for example, grocery stores in Cincinnati, Ohio was their very first episode, and ski resorts in Burlington, Vermont is the other one I chose to say as an example. So now I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek, your second sneak peek. And before I do that, let me give a little bit of context. This clip is from episode 54 of Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet, Menards in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Hopefully I pronounced that right. If you're like me and didn't know what Menards is, according to Wikipedia, it's a chain of home improvement stores located in the Midwestern United States. So, without further ado, let's hear for ourselves a dramatic reading of a 1-star review.
This one is really wild. This is a review by B, and it is a 1-star review. I'm just going to try my best. Here we go. I went Menards and the store manager, Nick, decided to treat me like shit. He told me I was an asshole and not to come in his store because of some bricks a year ago. Then, after escorting me out for not wanting to help me, he told me to fuck off. And my wife has a nice ass.
Wait. Okay, this store manager is kind of losing favor in my eyes, but this is getting pretty bad.
God, I'm like
is
so
it not over?
No, there's a lot more, and there's no punctuation like how we love, you know?
Yeah,
and
we
so
love those.
I can't read it to save my life. Okay. Then after escorting me out for not wanting to help me, he told me to fuck off, and my wife has a nice ass. I imagine he waited to say this outside so he would get caught, but I have several witnesses that I don't even know. They're just customers like me and couldn't believe his actions. This is much of a repeat from last year. If Menards don't get someone new in there, we are going to oik the parking lot. Now I figured out eventually that
What?
that
Oik
means
it?
picket.
Picket. Oh, picket. Oh, my lordy.
But it's spelled very much not like picket.
Yes.
If Menards don't get someone new in there, we're going to picket the parking lot for Nick to be removed. Any out there want in? I'll post...
Any Nick haters out there? Calling one and all.
I'll post the start date on here and Craigslist and Facebook. I'll post the start date on here and Craigslist and Facebook, and I'll put a sign on the highway.
Wait.
Come oik at the parking lot.
Big picture of Nick. Hate this guy?
He said my wife has a nice ass. I'll post the start date on here and Craigslist and Facebook, and I'll put a sign on the highway. Maybe we can get a full parking lot together and get this piece of work out of there. End of review.
I wonder how that worked out.
I wish so badly I could find the other. I haven't looked very
I really
hard.
hope someone writes in and says, yeah, I actually had a weird experience at the Eau Claire Menards. There's one guy with with an oik it fence sign, and it was had a picture of a guy named Nick. I don't really know what was going on,
He
but
was standing next to this lady with a really nice ass. I don't know who she was.
The co-hosts take turns reading these reviews they find in accordance with the episode's theme, usually complemented by that mood music you just heard. Because many of the reviews are 1 star, there's often a redemption section, where a 5-star review of the same business is shared to balance the scales a bit. And you'll notice that has a different music that they read those to kind of have a distinction there. Finally, every episode ends with a challenge section, where one host challenges the other to find a particularly specific, unrelated, and often counterintuitive type of review. So a few examples that they've done in the past would be, there was one, find a review written by a vegan for a steakhouse, and another one was find a review of somebody who, it was either like tased themselves or used pepper spray on themselves. I don't exactly remember, but there's a bunch of gold in the challenge section, and that's at the end of each of their episodes. Beach Too Sandy also features 3 alternative episode types: holiday-themed episodes, episodes recorded live, and a spin-off miniseries called Between You and Us, where they read reviews sent in by their listeners as opposed to having found them themselves. There's speculation of a 4th episode type, and this is kind of breaking news, everybody, because this was mentioned in their most recent upload as to the date of me recording this, which was speculation about including a Hall of Fame type episode, where the co-hosts read reviews written by the people of the past that they remember most. So there's a couple personalities that we encounter throughout these Yelp reviews and Google reviews that they just are like, we need to hear more from that person. And so what about an episode compiled of that? So they were talking about the potential of doing that, which I think it's a great idea, and I hope that they do it. Anyway, Beach Too Sandy uploads weekly on Wednesdays and releases about one Between You and Us episode each month. I have a sneak peek of a Between You and Us episode locked and loaded for y'all, but before we enjoy more Beach Too Sandy, let's rewind for a while and hear a little quick history. So the segment's pretty self-explanatory. This is the part of my show where I will share the origins of the show I'm speaking on. By the way, I'm going to use the term Podcast X or Pod X from time to time to refer to the show that I'm speaking about in the episode. So today, Podcast X would be Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. 2 weeks from now, Pod X might be Radio Lab or This American Life or whichever one that the episode is on. Okay? And to be honest, I'm not sure who I'm showcasing yet for A Pod About a Pod's next episode, so tune in on the Ides of March, Sunday, March 15th, to find out. So a quick history for Pod X. According to Spotify, Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet began in December of 2018. At first, each episode averaged about 20 to 30 minutes, with newer episodes now clocking in at around an hour long. After the first 11 episodes, they released the first Between You and Us on February 11th of 2019. And I know I promised another sneak peek, and I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. So go ahead and scope this soundbite. It's from Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet, and it's from Between You and Us, episode 6. It's a longer clip, but it's a great sample of their comedy. So go ahead and buckle up and enjoy the ride.
This was written by Chris, who, let's just say he's a popular Yelper.
Oh.
You're going to learn more about that.
Ooh, a cool guy.
Also, his profile picture is him and His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
No.
We made the 25-mile drive from Lawrence.
Wait, he and the Dalai Lama made the drive?
His Holiness?
Whenever he says we, I'm going to assume it's the Dalai Lama.
Oh, God. We made the 25-mile drive from Lawrence on a night and time they advertised as being open, 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. My birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
But we're turned away in the parking lot. As we drove up, a man I assume was the owner knocked on the window of our car and said, "We're actually closed for maintenance." I told him, "But we drove all the way from Lawrence to eat here." To which he replied, "Sorry. You can't close a business during business hours for routine maintenance just because Tuesday evening may be a bit slower than most." Yes, you can.
Yes, you can, Chris.
For an emergency such as a power outage, flood, or bomb threat, yes.
Whoa.
But maintenance, absolutely not.
Chris has bomb threat on the mind.
Bugsiner, remember that.
Okay.
Your interest in that phrase. Okay. For an emergency, power outage, flood, or bomb threat, yes. But maintenance? Absolutely not. I had heard that the food was good here and the service excellent, but I will never find out because I will not be back. You had your chance, Margaritas Jalisco, and you wasted our time and our gas. You blew it. Combat Critic gives Margaritas Jalisco 1 bomb out of 10 for obvious reasons and a spot on my wall of shame. More bombs are better. P.S. We drove over to El Centenario just a few blocks away. They were open, they were packed, and we had an excellent meal. Read my review elsewhere on Yelp. End of review.
Jesus.
So now...
Too much.
If you...
Far too much.
...or anything like me, you are intrigued by the paragraph, Combat Critic gives Margarita Jalisco 1 bomb out of 10. By the way, it says, for obvious reasons. It's like written like a headline, like capital F, capital O, capital R, for obvious reasons, and a spot on my wall of shame. More bombs are better. So I'm like, what on earth? So
is that a blog?
I type in Combat Critic, and I find combatcritic.blogspot.com.
No. And
Alexander... Look how good this website is.
Oh, yeah.
It actually has its own domain, combatcritic.com. And Blaze told me not to review this person.
Well, probably shouldn't.
Because he rates things in terms of bombs, first of all.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to know.
And then I stumbled upon, I didn't even know this person wrote the blog until I saw this. His Holiness and I, an article. And it's an article about him meeting His Holiness, the Dalai Lama.
Do you think His Holiness gave him the idea to review based on bombs? Is that where that came
It's
from?
a similar aesthetic.
I don't know about y'all. I love the Combat Critic. I love his BFF, the Dalai Lama. There's so many questions I have, but I don't even necessarily need the answers because my imagination is happy filling in the blanks all by itself. And I don't know about y'all, but I would welcome on that Hall of Fame, Where Are They Now episode, Beach Too Sandy. Please bring more Combat Critic back for the occasion because he's a gem. Let's be honest here. So I hope you enjoyed that sneak peek. We're going to switch gears once more now that we've had our quick history lesson and we've known what to expect from Podcast X. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I get back, it's time to meet the talent. And we're back. Listening to the Schiefer siblings banter back and forth reminds me a lot of my relationship with my sister, in all honesty, so naturally I was curious to learn more about these co-hosts. However, I am not a stalker, so all this information is available to anybody who has the inclination to listen to each and every episode of Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet, / anyone who knows how to use the Google. Okay? Here we go. Pod X is hosted by Christine Schiefer and Alexander Schiefer, who are brother and sister. They share a hometown in Cincinnati, Ohio, and currently live as roommates in Los Angeles, California. Christine will be turning 31 on June 4th of this year, which makes her a Gemini. She's married to a man named Blaze, and they have a dog named Gio, who has a dedicated Instagram account. I love her as a podcast host because she often supplies the darker humor, and her laugh makes me laugh. She also has a couple catchphrases that I find hilarious, like whenever she goes, "Listen." I love it. And for a while there, she was going Christine 2020 as a slogan. I haven't heard her throw that around as much recently, but that was also pretty funny. Alex will be turning 27 this year, and initially in my notes I have written on or around October 2nd because his birthday is referenced throughout episode 45, Tanning Salons in Huntington Beach, California, which was released on October 2nd. However, I will say September 30th is my final answer for Alex Schiefer's birthday because, according to Facebook, he raised $351 for the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention as part of a birthday fundraiser. So I just wanted to take a second to say, Alex, that is awesome. So you seem like a really good dude. I just love that. Made me love you even more to learn that. He's also a Libra and known as the bad boy of podcasting. In addition to hosting Beach Too Sandy, he also co-hosts a podcast called Weekly Update, which features only the best and most uplifting news, which I honestly haven't checked out yet, but that sounds right up my alley. I'm definitely going to have to add that to the queue. For the tech heads out there who are curious about the specs of Beach Too Sandy's equipment, they record using two Audio-Technica AT2020 USB Plus cardioid condenser mics and a Tascam Mini Studio US42 mixer out of a bedroom in their house. Once again, I do not know this because I'm looking through a window into their home. I actually know this because of an online article I read on medium.com, which anyone here is welcome to read too if you're interested. The title is How I Podcast, in conversation with Alex and Christine Schiefer of Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. Pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Welcome to Why It's Worth It, the meat of A Pod About a Pod. Now, I'm only going to feature shows I love. Okay, I feel like I've been pretty clear about that. If you ask any of my friends or family, I fangirl out about podcasts all the time. Like, if you get me started, I won't shut up probably until somebody else changes the subject or, puts their finger on my mouth to shush me. You and I may not know each other, or we may, but either way, I need to tell you, podcasts changed my life. All right? Podcasting is a revolutionary medium bursting with creative potential. Podcasts can be an antidote to loneliness, an antidote for ignorance, and serve many other functions that can make life richer. With that being said, let me begin to explain why I chose to highlight Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet as my first showcase for A Pod About a Pod with another sneak peek. This is from episode 9, featuring Waffle Houses in Atlanta, Georgia.
This whole thing is one sentence, except for the last two words, which are winners. But so here's a 5-star review from Douglas.
Okay.
All words are
5-star.
Sorry,
Oh.
definitely not.
Oh, my eyes glisten.
I know.
with hope.
No.
Okay.
1 star from Douglas. all caps except for the first word because he must have just forgotten. I'm going to not scream this because it's literally a giant run-on sentence.
Just picture in your mind's eye
the
capital letters, please.
Screaming. Absolute worst experience at a Waffle House in my life. As breakfast go, club music blasting, servers dancing around, touching on each other. Something I didn't order with my meal. Sat at the counter, which I had to ask to clean. All that being said, the cook did her thing. Food was good. I work as a chef for over 30 years, so I know service. If I had my way, I would terminate that whole crew, except the cook, very professional the way she did her thing. Signed, Douglas.
It says not. It does not.
It does say signed Douglas.
Comma?
Just signed Douglas, exclamation point.
Exclamation point?
Yes.
Capital?
No, all caps, I'm telling you.
Oh my God.
Everything, all caps, including that.
Douglas, I love you.
And throughout the whole thing, it was just commas, no periods, except for right before signed Douglas.
I do like that he knows how to use a comma, apparently.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, I thought you said commas, but no periods.
Oh, yes, commas, but that doesn't mean he used many of them.
Oh, he
just doesn't know how to.
What I meant by use, I use that very liberally. I meant he knows how to click it on the keyboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's hit that key before many times.
Wow. Okay, people. It sounded like he was in an orgy.
Yeah. See, that's another. See, I thought it was just so funny that he did sign Douglas, but then what kind of Waffle House did he go to?
I actually saw a review that was similar. That was like they were dancing on each other and stuff. I don't know. Maybe this happens at Waffle House.
We've been to many Waffle homes. At least I have, and I've never experienced that. And I always have wished for that.
Okay, I mean,
Atlanta's a place to go to Waffle House. I don't think I've been to one in Atlanta.
Please bookmark Douglas's account.
Yes.
Please, because I'm sure there's some gems in there.
That's a good call.
Please do that.
Okay, we'll do.
Let's start off by talking about performance quality. This podcast is about dramatic readings of one-star reviews, and Alex brought the drama, did he not? Theater is a hobby of mine, and when you're performing a monologue, which I feel like all of these reviews sort of qualify as, it's one speaker talking about one experience, there are beats located in the text where the speaker's intention or emotion changes. And I feel like Alex was very skilled in finding those moments where, the attitude shifts and complementing that with his voice acting. And I just wanted to draw attention to the craftsmanship there because it's pretty skillful to find those moments in one long run-on sentence and to capture the hills and valleys of the emotional roller coaster and to hold our hand throughout that journey. Well done, Alex, and also Christine as well. Both of them are great performers in the voice acting element of the podcast. A lot to offer there. There's probably rehearsal that goes into it, or if not rehearsal, some forethought beforehand of how they're going to spin it. I would definitely say that's safe to say. The audio design elements are another strength of Beach Too Sandy. Sound is clear and consistent across their library of content, and the familiar audio transitions and background music help to orient the listener throughout their different segments. I already talked about how much I love their intro and their theme music, It's to Die For. In addition to the inherent comedy of the one-star reviews, there's also plenty of that self-referential humor I touched upon earlier, and of course that enjoyable sibling dynamic, which provides a window into their personal lives through the anecdotes that happen to bubble up in conversation. Listening to this podcast feels like hanging out and goofing off with some close friends. Warning, possible side effects include laughing out loud in public places. Me, all the time, all day, every day. Alex and Christine also employ a degree of fairness and diplomacy in what could otherwise be a rather ruthless premise. Occasionally they supplement the reviews they find with additional research and context to enhance the entertainment value. By reading these reviews, they give a voice to the disgruntled customers, and if management responds, Beach Too Sandy usually gives the business a voice too. I believe the inclusion of redemption reviews balances the audience's impressions of these businesses mentioned. To summarize, Beach Too Sandy is comedic, theatrical, and conversational all at the same time. They have consistent editing, production quality, and upload schedule. They're active on social media and Patreon, which also helps to facilitate a fair bit of audience interaction. Speaking of balancing impressions, let's catch one more sneak peek as our transition into the next segment. This review is of a car wash left by somebody named RS, who apparently has a lot of suggestions, like me. So let's take a listen.
This is a review of Soapy Joe's Car Wash. It
Oh, I looked at that place.
was written by R.S.,
Okay,
and it was a 1-star review, of course.
sure.
And this is what R.S. has to say. Minnesota winters destroy the outsides of cars. 4-year-old kids with a $2 a day Cheez-It habit destroy the insides of cars. Soapy Joe's is not the place, though, to help with either.
Oh.
If your business is, washing cars, then for God's sake, have the ability to wash a car.
Makes sense.
If I go there, wait in line 15 minutes, only to find out that it will be another hour to have them clean my car, then maybe they shouldn't be in the car wash business. By the time you find out that it'll be forever for a full service wash, you're at the front of the line and you can't escape.
Oh my God.
There's no turning back. So I get the cheapest wash, the one I don't need, and get the craptastic fuck you $6.99 version, the one where you drive it through and they pretend to dry your car. I can do better at my neighborhood BP.
Oh, she's having a bad day. Is that lady or guy? Do we know?
No, just RS.
Oh,
Yeah, this was rough.
sounds like a bad time.
But like when you pay $6.99, then you're like, I could do better at my BP. Aren't the BP ones more than $6.99
Yeah.
anyway? Ugh. But that's not all.
Oh God, of course it's not.
You vacuum yourself. That's like going to a Starbucks and brewing your own coffee.
No, it's not, but okay.
It's disdainful of the customer.
Oh, I don't think that's how that word works.
I don't think so either, RS. But yeah, I don't think that's what happens. Or that's Starbucks, $6.99. You pay $6.99 and then you have to vacuum your car.
It's pretty disdainful.
I'm no free market expert.
Oh, no way,
Yeah,
RS.
I
You
can't
don't
believe
say.
it. But if you want to wash cars, wash cars. I mean,
That's basically what the free market boils down to. So
I don't know what
they hit it right on the head.
I say this every time, but I don't know what their logic is, and I'm never going to understand.
There's no plot.
I mean, I'm just spitballing here. But here are some options.
Oh boy.
1, hire more people. 2, do things better. 3, sell and get out of the business
Why
altogether.
didn't they think of that?
End of review.
Do things
Yeah,
better.
do things better.
That's just rude.
RS needs to write a business management Bible
It's
for
like
everyone.
the Michael Scott manager book that
Oh
he's
my
writing.
gosh. Oh my gosh, what was the title?
Who manage or
Who's managing who?
somehow I manage, and he's shrugging on the cover.
Oh yeah, of course.
Room for improvement. I feel like I need to include a segment like this on the show for a couple of reasons. First, let me reiterate that while A Pod About a Pod is only going to feature podcasts that I've listened to firsthand and think are worth sharing, I don't want my content to come across as one long extended commercial. Nothing is perfect, so here's my hot take on Beach Too Sandy's Room for Improvement. If you binge listen to the content, the structure can become repetitive. At times, episodes contain a little fat, which could be cut, such as asides that aren't particularly funny, or more rarely, instances of dead air. After all, while that sibling banter is predominantly hilarious and charming, sometimes they talk over each other, or carry on with tangents so thick with inside jokes that the listener risks losing the train of thought. I consider their self-referential humor to be more of a strength than a weakness because it promotes a sense of community and rewards consistent listenership. On the flip side, there are moments that may alienate newcomers to the show if they don't understand earlier references or listen to uploads out of order. Otherwise, Beach Too Sandy keeps things fresh by innovating their premise as time goes on. Episodes featuring international locales have just begun, and with that potential Hall of Fame / Where Are They Now idea in the works, it will be a treat to see how Beach Too Sandy continues to innovate as they continue their legacy. Welcome to the Peanut Gallery, aka the end of the episode. The sun is setting here on the first installment of A Pod About a Pod. I had a lot of fun, some laughs, and I hope you did too. The Peanut Gallery is the last segment of the show where I will either share some listener mail, or in some cases there may be a surprise guest who comes to give their opinion on the podcast of the day. Because this is our first episode, I don't have any listener mail yet, but please feel free to email me at apodaboutapod@gmail.com to give me feedback, suggestions for shows to feature, or just to say hello, whatever you want. Also, you can find A Pod About a Pod on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, so be sure to follow us and show your support to spread that APAAP love. Instead of listener mail or a surprise guest for today's Peanut Gallery, I will treat you instead to one last sneak peek of Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. This is a redemption review from episode 60 of Pizza Places in Wichita, Kansas, which, fun fact, is the birthplace of Pizza Hut, and double fun fact, that's my day job here in San Diego. So, without further ado, go ahead and listen to this last sneak peek.
I am a pizza lover, and I can certainly tell that Pizza Hut is one of the top stores that serves amazing hot, fresh cooked pizza. I would also love to recommend their pepperoni pizzas. It makes me tremble. I'm sorry.
I'm already feeling like no one's written a review ever like this about a Pizza Hut, and then it gets weird.
I know. I would also love to recommend their pepperoni pizzas. It makes me tremble in excitement just by telling how delicious it is.
There's something weirdly gross about this. I'm very uncomfortable.
It's not weirdly
I'm
gross.
So uncomfortable.
It's very openly, outwardly gross. I would also love to recommend their... Let me read it over and over again. I'm sorry. It makes me tremble in excitement just by telling how delicious it is, comma. Enter, enter. Thanks, Pizza Hut. You were still there after so many downfalls.
What? No wonder you're trembling. You've had quite the life.
Thanks, Pizza Hut. You were still there after so many downfalls. And for that, I will give you 4 stars.
Wait, it wasn't even a 5-star review?
It was a 5-star review.
Oh, what's the last one for?
I don't...
The trembling feeling?
He wrote, the review is 5 stars, and then he wrote, for that I will give you 4 stars.
He went to click 4-star, but trembled too much and hit 5.
He's always trembling. Oh my God.
I think you need to see a doctor. I don't think it was a Pizza Hut.
Oh my God. This whole thing was so strange. At first I was like, oh, cute. And then I was like, oh dear. Oh no.
Thanks for joining me here at A Pod About a Pod featuring Beach Too Sandy, Water Too Wet. On the Ides of March, I will be back with a brand new episode. See you in 2 weeks.